Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the 921 patch notes. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Check out the rest of the offerings on the channel as well. We're going to have tier lists, and then I have coaching sessions, other guides. We stream every night starting around 9:30 or 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we'd love to have you check everything out. And yeah, let's go ahead and get in here. Okay, so the meta is pretty interesting right now overall. I think that it's fairly balanced. There are definitely some imbalances, and they try to address some of the main ones in here. But I think as far as different classes of champions being fair to play, I think it's about as close as it's been all season. I think there are definitely some tanks that are able to be played. Dr. Mundo in the jungle is obviously very good, but I have seen, some Zacs in the jungle occasionally. Sejuani's still like okay in solo queue. Ornn top, if you get ahead early, can be okay. So tanks are still not in an amazing place, but there are still some okay tanks that are available in the jungle, and tank E type of champions like Garen and Darius that aren't formally tanks but can take a lot of damage, are still getting played sometimes. So that's ultimately a good thing. And then, assassins are still good. Mages are pretty good. ADCs are a little on the weak side still. They're going to address a lot of that in the preseason. Be sure to check out my preseason video where I talk about, how I think some of those changes are going to impact mages, or ADCs rather. But overall, I think they're working in the right direction. They have been in the past few patches, really ever since they started nerfing Irelia and Akali significantly and taking down the skill cap barriers on some of the most challenging champs. Then they've been working towards that goal. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get in here. So they don't need to make a ton of changes. I like a ton of changes. I think it's fun, but I think they're saving up on some of this just so they can finalize the balancing for the preseason, which is going to have a lot of crazy stuff going on. And then they're going to see how the meta shakes up, because they don't really need to hyper buff all of the tanks if getting rid of Conqueror and some of the other adjustments, not getting rid of it, but changing it back to the old fervor of battle and some of the other changes, if that's going to shake up the meta anyways, then you don't really need to buff the tanks. If the tanks are still in trouble, then you need to buff them. So I think they're waiting to make a lot of significant sweeping changes across multiple classes until they see how some of these preseason changes shake out, because it's really hard to predict exactly how that stuff's going to work out. But anyways, there are a few changes here, so let's go ahead and go through them. First up, Garen. So Garen is pound for pound the most OP champion in solo queue right now. I mean, that's statistically true. He's 54%. Yes, Ashe is a little bit higher, and I guess she does have a higher pick rate, but anecdotally, I just feel like there are a lot more answers to Ashe. Yes, she does have good poke in lane, but a lot of people still build her really poorly with the Blather and King build instead of either the Essence Reaver Rush or the Infinity Edge Rush. So I think there are a lot of ways to build Ashe, and that's good, but she's just vulnerable, She doesn't have a dash. If she gets engaged on by a Leona or a Nautilus or something like that, she's probably going to die. So I just think that she has more pronounced weaknesses, and Aurelion Sol is pretty much a one-trick champion that you almost never see in solo queue. But Garen is pretty much everywhere. I mean, just the ban rates on top of the pick rates kind of tell the story here, right? He's banned 61% of the time. Is that the highest ban rate? Yes. It's the most banned champion by a very wide margin. And he's one of the most picked champions. Yeah, he's in the conversation, like the top 10 or something, for most picked champions. And he's the third highest win champion. When you have all three of those together, that's a problem. And he's really low skill cap for the most part. There's not anything super challenging about, you play Garen. There's some stuff, you got to make sure you're using your Q as an auto attack reset whenever possible. There's some timing with your W where you get, you can block a lot of damage. So there's definitely some stuff there, but let's be honest, he's one of the lower skill cap champs in the game for a reason, and you really should not have a champion like that that's completely dominating. Champions like that, champions like Sona, who, is kind of the Garen equivalent for supports to an extent to where there's just no skill shots, basically. I mean, her ult kind of. But, those champs should be balanced around being 50 or 51% win rate. Something that's that reliable should not have that high of a win rate. So they definitely should nerf Garen. So what did they do for him? They're doing E Judgment. Now, people were complaining earlier. Okay, it is Judgment. I think they called it Justice. I don't know. They had a typo in there, but I guess they fixed it. People were tripping about that earlier today. But anyway, so they're lowering the base damage by 4 per spin. And then the damage ratio is the same. So that sounds like a lot. It's like, oh my god, they're cutting a spin in half. But you got to remember, the 4 really is not that much. It's the damage ratio that matters the most. So early on, if you get to like 100 total AD, remember that's not bonus AD. That includes his base AD. If you get to something like 100 total AD early, then it's going to be 32. You get 3 points of this by level 5 or whatever. I guess it'd be 36. And then you're losing 4 off of this. The total is going to be 48, and you're losing 4 of that. So that's 2% of the damage off of this, maybe around level 5. Probably like 2 to 5% of the damage. So it's really not going to matter that much, right? And as the game goes on, near like level 9, you're losing 4 damage off of what will probably be somewhere around, I don't know, 60 total damage. So it's just really not going to matter that much, I don't think. He's overloaded. He does too much, and he's too efficient at it. He's too tanky. He does too much damage. He has too much mobility, and he's too easy to play. All right, his base stats are still really high. 66 base damage, 620 health. He has free sustain in lane, which he's actually like not amazing, but you can play him in the jungle right now as well. He's pretty good at dueling other junglers early, a lot of them. I mean, he's probably not going to beat like a Xin Zhao early, but there's definitely some things he can beat in the early game in the jungle. His ganks are obviously going to be a little questionable, but if you have something like a Leona that can hard engage and lock people up, or a Nautilus, I mean, he can still gank and kill people. And he heals the entire time because little monsters don't stop him from healing anymore. So he has a very good sustain in the jungle. I'm kind of curious now, what is his, I didn't look at this, but what is his jungle win rate? I know LS had said that they thought it was going to be really good. Seriously, there's no data for Garen in the jungle? Okay, I guess nobody's tried him out in the jungle yet. I mean, I think he could be better than some stuff in the jungle right now. Not everything, but, he's probably better than, like, Rumble in the jungle right now. But anyways, he's just overloaded. His silence still does high damage, 40% of your total AD, not bonus AD, total AD. And then it's just like he gets all this extra stuff on top of it. Like, he gets 30% bonus movement speed, and it cleanses him of all slows. So if he has a slow on him, he just gets rid of it and gets 30% bonus movement speed. Obviously, all of his skills cost no mana either, so he doesn't have to invest in a mana item. It does pretty good damage, and it silences people for a second and a half, which is very significant. And it's an auto attack reset. It's like, why does it have to be all of these things? Why does it have to have the cleanse? Why does it have to last for 4.5 seconds? Why does it have to be an auto attack reset? There it is. All of these things are just really weird about it. So don't forget, this is also an auto attack. If you use it as a reset, so if you have like 100 total AD, this doesn't look like a lot of damage, but if you have like 100 total AD, right, and you use this as an auto attack reset, means you get a free extra auto on top of that. So that's plus 100 damage. So this would be, 40 damage on top of this, like 150, would be 190 damage, and then you get an extra auto in there, which makes it 290 damage. So auto attack resets are really, really powerful. Now, a lot of times people use this to gap close, so they use this to catch up to people, but especially against other melee champs, you may not have to do that. You might be able to open up with your Judgment and then Decisive Strike them afterwards with an auto reset. But anyways, it's just overloaded with stuff. And then speaking of overloaded, this gives you a passive 30 bonus armor and magic resist, which is just a free, 1,100 gold value on the house. And then it also gives him 30% damage reduction for some length of time. And it gives him a shield for 10% of his maximum health. And it gives him 60% tenacity, which is basically reduces all CC duration on him for 60%. Why does it need all of that? Why can't it just be 30% reduction to incoming damage? Like, why does it have to be a shield and tenacity on top of it? There's just like so many extra things they've added to his abilities that just don't make any sense. Like, he doesn't need all of that. Like, his spin to win here that just got nerfed, it's still going to be really good. So you can get a maximum, and they changed this now where you get more spins. This is one of the bigger buffs they gave him, is that when you get Trinity Force, I believe Trinity is, it doesn't have it, let me put this up here. I think it's 40%, which is basically what you get on him. You never want to do Cleaver after the changes. Yeah, 40% attack speed. So even if you just get the Trinity Force, then that's going to give you 9 total spins, right? And I believe it does include growth per level. So that's something that a lot of people forget to calculate as well. So if we look here, you know, at level 9, when you max this out, you're getting 24% extra attack speed on growth per level. So if you get 20% from Trinity and you get 20% from growth per attack speed or whatever, then all of a sudden you're up to 9 spins. Or actually it's 40 from Trinity, 20% from that, then you're up to 10 spins. So 10 spins to win, and then if you throw a Phantom Dancer on top of that, and plus extra attack speed growth, and you're probably getting up to 11 spins. So I don't remember what it was before, but I think it used to be something around like 9 total spins, and now with most Garen builds, it's easy to get like 11 or potentially 12 spins pretty close to the mid to late game. So about, 20 minutes or so, you could probably get 11 spins out of it. 11 or sometimes even 12 spins out of it. So that's really, really strong. So if we're just thinking even in the mid game, just a simple 9 spins, and remember, there's no diminishing returns on these spins. It does full damage every single time. If you have even 100 AD, if this is maxed out, you have 100 total AD, which is a very, very small amount. But if you have that, then it's 60 per spin, and times whatever, 9, that's 540 damage, not including the fact that it shreds armor for 25%, and it triggers Conquer, so a lot of that's going to end up being true damage. And if you do your Q, like if you spin and then auto attack and then get an auto reset, you're going to have all the Conquer buff, and they're going to have their armor shredded, and you're going to get, the healing and the true damage off of Conquer. So that's just where it starts to get disgusting. It's like, why does it do all this? And it does 25% bonus damage to the closest target. Even if you're hitting like 5 targets, the nearest one is always going to get 25% bonus damage applied to them. It used to be that if you were hitting multiple targets, none of them got bonus damage. You had to get full isolation to get the bonus damage. Now you can do it in traffic and it's still going to target 25% for the extra person. So now it's 540 damage, but they're taking 25% more, and their armor's shredded, and a lot of it's true damage, and a lot of it's healing him. And he gets all of these extra resistances and other crap for free. So that's why you can see, like, what the issue is here, is he just, like, completely deletes people, and it's AoE. That's 540 people baseline damage to everybody. So, like, in a team fight, if you can get close to even, like, 2 people, that's 1,000 damage. 25% extra to the first person, and they're all shredded. That 25% armor reduction isn't just for him, by the way. Anyone else, like the Kha'Zix on your team, is now basically going to benefit from the 25% extra damage. The 80 carry on your team benefits from having this shredded for 6 seconds. It's not even like it's a couple of seconds. It's 6 extra seconds. So this is once again just overloaded. Oh, and by the way, it can critically strike too, because why not? What? Why? Why can it critically strike? Abilities aren't supposed to critically strike. There are very, very few abilities that critically strike, and usually they're very conditional, and they're not that strong unless you, like, specifically buy crit to scale off of it. Like, Zaya's Feathers, for example, can do this. There are a couple other abilities, but there aren't that many, right? But this, for some reason, the whole thing can crit. Now, it doesn't gain full benefit out of the crit, but it does get half benefit out of the crit. So if you get something like Phantom Dancer, it's still going to be adding on an extra 15% damage to your spins, potentially, whenever they crit or whatever. So, it's just overloaded. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's free. Remember, you don't have to pay mana for this. You can use it anytime you want, on its 9-second cooldown. So it just does way, way too much damage. And remember, that was a super conservative number. Just 100 total AD, including your base. Like, you can get 100 AD just off of your base numbers. Like, level 9, you already have 96. Like, with no items. So it's going to be way more than what I just described. A lot of times, it's probably going to be closer to 600 or 700 damage once you complete your Trinity Force. So, and don't forget, your Trinity Force proc is, I believe, physical damage. On hit physical damage. So it's going to benefit from, getting that shred off of your passive. Or off of your judgment. So it just works so well with his kit. It has some great utility to it that it can shred armor off of the entire team. Yes, you can still get Black Cleaver if you want to have that extra shred, but you really just want the Trinity because now you get the extra benefit off of the attack speed, and it just gives you way more damage off of like the decisive strike. Just getting that extra Trinity proc, that extra Trinity damage in there is just so strong. So it's just very good. And by the way, the icing on the cake, his ult does true damage all the time now. Like 100% of the time it's doing true damage. They don't have to be the villain. You don't even have to think about it, trying to hunt down the villain or anything like that. It's just straight up anyone you want, true damage. And it's 20% of their missing health. So if you're fighting, a tank in the top lane or whatever at level 6, they have 1,000 health. You drop them down to half health. You drop them down to 500. All of a sudden, this is going to do 250 true damage. That's a quarter of their health in true damage. That can't be dodged. There's no counterplay. You can't even try to, like, hide in a bush or something, like, line of sight him. There's no way to get away from it. You can't flash it once he starts the animation. He's going to get you with it. It's 400 range, so it's deceptively a lot further than his auto attack range. So that's just too much. That's way too much damage. And then, of course, once you start getting, like, later into the game, into the mid-game, it's 300 base with 25% of their missing health. So if you're facing, like, a 2,000 health tank target, and they're missing 1,000 of their health, then all of a sudden this is going to be hitting for 550 true damage. So it's just way, way too much damage. And there's just not any counterplay. Like, a lot of it is just straight up a truckload of damage. You can't build armor. You're not getting away from him because he cleanses all of your slows and he runs after you at lightning speed. And he's just really, really hard to kill. So, yeah, he's still going to be super strong. So, we'll move on. I just wanted to explain, if people are wondering, why is Garen so strong right now? To give you a hint here, I don't think he had been played in pro play maybe once or twice, maybe like less than 5 times over the last like entire history of League. I think Exil did an entire video on it where he called him the worst professional champion in League of Legends because he just never got played. And now, he hasn't played all the time, but he's definitely a menace in pro play right now. And that was before all of his buffs last patch. So he was already becoming pretty good with the previous buffs with Yuumi in the bot lane. So now part of that is because a lot of AD carries are really weak right now, but still very strong. So I'm glad they're looking at him, but taking away 4 damage, per spin, over 9 spins, that's 36 damage. Taking away 36 damage from an ability at level 9, a normal ability, not an ultimate, that does, the potential for, like, AoE 500 something damage and up to 600 something, against a single target when you get the 25% bonus, is not doing much. Like, that's not even a band-aid on the wound. That's, like, just blowing on it or something. So he's still a massive problem. He still should be pick banned every game. Okay, Kayn. Is Kayn really weak right now? I feel like I don't see him a lot. It does feel like he can be weak, but I just feel like he's average. But maybe he's pretty far below average. I mean, I don't see him a lot, but he's about, he's like 49.5%. I don't know. Okay. Giving him 15 extra damage. This is going to help him with his clear. This is what he maxes first. It does help both forms. So, it's pretty solid. It also increases his, that's Ross, that's red Kayn. Increases his total attack damage. I think once he gets transformed into red, if you do itemize him correctly, with a lot of healing, you get, what does he get? Like Death's Dance, typically. like Cleaver, Death Stance, Warrior. I'm pretty sure it's that type of build. Then he can be pretty good. He can serve as kind of an off tank. He can soak a lot of damage. He can do some pretty good damage himself. He's got that knock up with his Q. So, I think he's okay. Now they did lower the his bonus damage to monsters with his Q, so I guess that really doesn't help his clear that much as I thought. He already has a pretty good clear, but it gives him 15 extra damage versus champions. I don't think it's going to matter that much. I mean, maybe there are some duels early on he can win. Now, he does snowball pretty hard, because the more that he damages people, and I don't remember if kills or assists increases stacking, but he can stack up pretty quickly the more he fights. So he does really want to fight early so he can get his transformation. So it's pretty good. Maybe this is better than I think, but, maybe he gets like 1% off of this. Garen, I don't think is even going to touch his win percentage. Maybe he loses like 0.25% or something. I really don't think it's going to matter. Maybe there's some like super early game matchups where the 4 damage is going to matter for all-in level 2s against Riven or something. But overall, I don't think it's going to matter. Okay. Now, this is interesting that they are buffing Kog'Maw's base damage on his abilities. Because typically, when I think of Kog'Maw most of the time, I just think his abilities don't even matter. You just press W and right-click and just position to dodge stuff and, don't get hit and all that. And I just think of him as just like one of the quintessential, just buff him up and right-click and protect him, and he just melts everybody. But they're buffing his ability. So this is actually a bigger buff for something like AP Cog, which I still don't think is that good. Although, to be honest, I haven't seen him in a while. I think I saw one AP Cog a couple of weeks ago, and he actually did all right. But this would buff AP Cog in theory. I mean, 290 damage with 40 base mana cost on an 8-second cooldown, like, that's pretty good. It doesn't have an AP or it doesn't have much of an AP ratio on it, but giving 10 extra damage on that is not bad. Typically, with most Kog'Maws, with normal Kog'Maw, you're not gonna max this, but maybe you do. Maybe you do with this one. And it gives you 35% bonus attack speed just because, and it shreds resistances. Their resistances for 4 seconds for a little bit. Now, it's a straight line skill shot that doesn't have a huge radius, but if you're hitting this consistently, like, I mean, that's some decent poke damage. Even just 90, in your first 3 levels can be decent. So, that's some okay poke damage. He still doesn't do that much. God, that number is just so low. The 3% early on, I think it used to go up to 8%. It might have been 7 or 8%, but I feel like this is what they should buff. I guess they think that's scary, but after the nerf to Gensu's, I feel like you could give him a little bit of this, but maybe they feel like that's a more toxic gameplay style and they want him to use his abilities. So, I get it. Now, this, once again, this is even more damage. This is 15 extra damage. So, and this deals full damage to all targets. Okay, it does not have diminishing returns. And that's becoming increasingly rare in the mid lane, especially, is that typically a lot of abilities are going to have diminishing returns against multiple targets. Now, some of these poke type of mages, he's competing with things like Xerath and Vel'Koz, these other sort of immobile mages, maybe Lux to an extent. These kind of immobile mages in the mid lane have really good poke and really good wave clear. So, a lot of them still deal their full damage to minions and clear very quickly. Or like Ziggs, maybe. So, I'm not sure if he's quite up to par with them yet, but that's a decent little slow. I don't know what you would max as AP Cog. I'm assuming maybe a max Void Ooze. It might be Caustic Spittle. The Void Ooze, you can throw that through a minion wave. Although the cooldown is really long on it, the 12 seconds, so you probably don't max it. I mean, maybe you still max. I can't imagine with AP Cog you would max this out. If I was guessing, it's probably Caustic Spittle and then Void Ooze. Because I assume you want to be using this. If you hit this, maybe you Void Ooze first. I mean, the 52% slow is definitely relevant. Maybe you Void Ooze first, slow them, then you hit them with the Caustic Spittle. I mean, the ideal would be you Caustic Spittle them, lower their magic resist, then you hit them with the Void Ooze, and then you start pelting them with the Living Artilleries. And this is pretty good range. I mean, 1280 is pretty high range. This is pretty good range, too, at 1130. So it's like, this is easier to hit, but it's on a longer cooldown. This is more damage, and it's on a lower cooldown, but it's tougher to hit. So I'm not an AP Cog expert. I don't know. But I think that this could be okay with AP Cog. And then Living Artillery, you know, they nerfed this quite a bit. It does do extra damage based on missing health. So if they're missing 0 to 50% of the target's missing health. Okay. So at 60% missing health, then they take 50% extra damage. So if they're at like half health and they're taking 40% extra, so if you have, you know, 25% AP, you know, it's 165 with an extra 40%. When, you know, it's like 200 something every time you shoot this. But it starts getting very expensive. So I don't know. Honestly, I'm not sure how you build him. Obviously, it has to be tiers. So you're going to go Seraphs. But I'm not sure if you're supposed to go, like, the Rylai's Liandry's package. I think that's good. Or if you try to go for something like Nashor's, because this still does decent base damage with your autos. So I'm not really sure. I feel like this might raise up AP Cog. I don't know. He might be, like, niche viable again. I'm not in, you know, don't go out and just say TSP told you to play AP Cog Metal. He still might have a hard time. Yeah, he's still 45% in the mid lane. I don't think it's going to matter. But maybe he goes up a few percent. Maybe he goes to 48%. Like, nobody plays it, though. So we'll see. Maybe if some big name streamer plays it, people try it. But in general, I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. But it's nice. You know, if there's a couple other buffs or something that come down the line to help him out, maybe you could see him in the mid lane. I don't think for bot lane it matters, you know. I mean, I guess it does give you a little bit more trading, but he still has a lot of problems with itemization. He just takes too long to come online. He's pretty weak in the early game. They are buffing Lulu, and Lulu is very good with him, but I still don't think it's going to matter that much. But if you like AP Cog, if you're an AP Cog enthusiast, you know, this might help you out a little bit. There might be some places, if you're very, very good at hitting your stuff with him in the mid lane, maybe you can play him. I do think something like Xerath, maybe even Vel'Koz is probably going to be better if you're good at hitting skill shots like that. But if you really like Kog'Maw, this will certainly make him a little better. Okay, Lulu, they're giving her a little bit of extra damage and a little bit of extra shield, which is nice. I mean, her damage in lane, 20 extra damage is definitely significant because this is what you want to max first. Or at least you get 3 points of this in lane, and then a lot of times you switch over to the W. But maybe you just full max this now that you have better scaling on it. And this is nice because it does your damage in lane. It also serves as your shield outside of the lane. So remember, the shield only lasts 2.5 seconds, though. So, you know, the person has to be taking quite a bit of damage to get full value out of this. So this will help Lulu out some, but in general, I think the biggest problem with Lulu is just her W does too much of her good stuff. Like, her Q is basically worthless outside of lane. Her E is okay. This certainly makes her E a little bit better. But the W is what's really powerful. It's the Polymorph, which is basically like a 2.25 second stun that allows them to still move. So they can't cast or do abilities or anything, but they can still move. And then it's also the movement speed buff and the attack speed buff for your allies. So they really just need to move the attack speed buff off of her W onto her E. I think that'd be perfect. Because then you can give your attack speed buff and a shield to somebody, and you still have your polymorph. So then you could buff up your AD carry and everything with your shield and still use your W to polymorph. And I think she really needs to be able to do that. Because right now, it just feels like you lose too much power when you have to buff up your ally with the W. Right? Like, that's really what you want to be doing with her. You want to give the attack speed buff. You want to give the movement speed buff to your Kog'Maw or your Vayne or your Jinx or whatever, your Hyperscaler. But then that means that you basically don't do anything. If you do that, right? That means you don't have any sort of CC outside of your ult. Your Q doesn't do anything. Your shield is okay. But you just don't have the same kind of CC and toolkit that a lot of other enchanters do. You also don't have a heal in your kit. So if you take some poke in lane, that can be a little rough. And your ult is nice for an infusion of health, but the numbers are pretty low on it. It doesn't have a good AP ratio, and it doesn't count as a heal, so it doesn't scale with plus healing and shielding. So her scaling is largely based on buffing up your AD carry with your attack speed and getting the Ardent Sensor buff. And that's where she's good. But if your AD carry fails, you know, if they go like 0-5 in lane, which is very common a lot of times in a lot of ELOs, I feel like AD carry is one of the weakest roles right now. Then you're just not going to get as much value out of that W. Like, the polymorph duration is very nice, like the 2.25 seconds, but you got to remember they can also move. And that's one of the major issues with her as well, is like, if someone catches you out in the jungle and you polymorph them, you're probably still dead. You know, if the Xin Zhao is walking up to you and you turn around to polymorph him, you don't have a move speed anymore, because that's your only move speed is your W. And he's still going to be able to run after you. Now, he's going to have reduced speed, but realistically, he's probably going to catch you a lot of the time. And that's just how I feel about Lulu. It's like a lot of difficult situations you can polymorph, and it's good, but you're just sacrificing too much to be able to do it. So she's okay. She has a very interesting, like, good kit, but she just needs, like, one more spell. Like, her E and Q feel like half spells right now. But this will certainly be good. I mean, this will be good for trading. So if you have her with one of those hyperscalers, with a Kog'Maw, with a Jinx or something like that, you can consider running her. But she is pretty good against assassins. Obviously, the polymorph on top of your ult, you know, is pretty good peel. So she's okay. I think this will move her up a little bit. You know, maybe like a couple of percentage points. Maybe this brings her back around 50, 51% near some of the other enchanters. But I don't think this is going to be too insane. But, you know, the 10 extra damage in lane and the 20 extra shield, I think is definitely pretty relevant. Okay. Or actually, it's 20 extra damage in lane and 10 extra shield is definitely going to be relevant. Okay, Maokai. So it costs less. Okay, great. Doesn't matter. You max this like second, I think. Now, 20 damage early, that is definitely significant for some all-in. So maybe there's some matchups that you can actually win early with Twisted Advance. But Maokai's main problem is that, you know, just like most other tanks, he just gets completely wrecked by Conquer. Just the true damage and just how much damage a lot of the other top laners are doing right now. You know, if he's up against a Darius or a Garen, I just feel like he has no chance. And those champions are so strong and so powerful, because they just carve right through tanks. Garen, obviously, for the reasons I described. But Darius also, just because that bleed just does so much damage, and he has a true damage ult as well, because why not? You know, Conquer true damage, not enough. We got to give true damage ults out for the Garen and the Darius. But I don't know. It's okay. There might be some matchups, but like Maokai's biggest issue is the range on his W. And I don't really understand why they don't fix that. I mean, I get it, like they don't want him to be too strong, but what they need to do is just they need to like just remove some power in his kit somewhere and then make his W like an actual engage. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Make his W like an actual engage that you can really use. Because right now, I think the range is like 600, which is ridiculous. So he can't engage. Basically, he can only peel. And so that sort of relegates him to the peeler tank sort of category, kind of like Braum and Tom, who are not doing so hot right now. Just your peeler tanks, your tanks that don't have an engage, are going to be a problem. You know, or, you know, there's Mundo, who just does an insane amount of damage and is basically not a tank. He's just a bruiser that's impossible to kill. But you think about most of your tanks, like your Sejuani's, your Ornn, Zac, all of these champs have really good engage, and that's sort of what he's lacking. Now, they have mentioned that, you know, with the grasp or whatever, this can work, but it's so slow. People can literally just run away from it. Like, a lot of times, if people have tier 2 boots, they can actually just run from it. Like, they don't even have to dodge it or juke it. It is actually kind of hard to juke, because it's pretty wide. But people can actually just run out of it. And you can body block for people. So if the AD carry just stands behind the support Leona, then that body blocks this Nature's Grasp. So they need to make it either where Nature's Grasp can go through people and can hit multiple targets. That would help. That would make it harder to dodge. Or they need to make it faster. I'm okay if they like lower the range on it. Like, why 3,000 range? Just make it like 1,500 range and make it move at a reasonable speed, like at least Nami wave speed, right? That thing is really slow too, but this is like slow to the next level. I don't remember its exact movement speed, but it is very, very slow. So just make it like Nami wave speed, still slow, still dodgeable. You know, they have a long time if they want to like flash it. They can choose to flash it. But I think they need to improve this in some way, or they need to improve his W. So twist, wow, I thought it was 600 range. It's actually 525 range. So you have to be closer than auto attack range to use your point click engage with the twisted advance. And the root duration's not even that high. Like, it's okay, up to 1.4 seconds, but the damage is just so low. Like, they just nerfed him so much. And this used to do like 200 something damage, I thought. His numbers just are bad. Like, this thing here, so his engage is only 525 range, 13-second cooldown, up to, 170 max damage, 0.4 ratio, not even a 1.5 second stun. Like, if you compare this to most other major tanks, it's a joke. Like, it's just ridiculous. And then Bramble Smash, once again, it's okay, but they've nerfed the damage out a pretty good chunk. They nerfed the AP ratio, so they just really, really do not want you going AP Maokai. AP Maokai support used to be interesting for about maybe a quarter of a season there. I think it was back in Season 7. So he has a good kit. He's just a victim of numbers being really weak. And then this is still pretty weak, too. It's all right, but if they are, like, really dead set on nerfing out AP Maokai, they need to just nerf the seeds or rework these in some ways. I wouldn't mind if they lower the damage on it and just like let him keep the vision around for longer, because it used to be 60 seconds for the vision, I'm pretty sure. Then he could be an okay support. If this was upgraded to like 700 range, which is still like, respectable, or at least like what's Alistar's Pulverize, because that's basically a point click CC, right? I think Alistar's is at least 600, right? Yeah, 650. Just make it Alistar range. Okay, so then he'd be the same thing as Alistar. He's got a point-click engage. You got to be careful when he's stepping up. And I think that would make it more viable. And then just increase his AP ratios a little bit. Increase his CC a little bit. But as it stands, I just don't think this is enough. Yes, they are increasing, how much you get rooted on the R a little bit. They're increasing the damage a little bit. That's so sick that it was only 150 damage. But yeah, in 2019, these numbers are just too low. So we'll see. Maybe if they remove Conquer, they can do it. But they need to either give him, like, better range, more CC, or more damage. Something in there. But, yeah. So I don't think it's going to matter. I mean, it'll give him a little bit, but I still think he's going to be on the weak side. And he's a unique champion, especially if you could run him as support, because he, does AP damage. He's a tank that scales a little bit with AP, which is nice, and he has a lot of CC. So there aren't that many tanks like that actually have, like, okay scaling, a little bit of damage in their kit. So he could fulfill a very unique kind of niche if he became decent down there. But as it is, still a little bit too weak. Now, this is spooky right here. This is basically a massive buff to Master Yi without any compensatory nerf. So, apparently, the Phantom hits, so the extra hits off of Gensu's, were not triggering Double Strike for Master Yi and his Double Strike attacks, which are the true damage, like, ton of extra damage that he does. And so, he was missing out then on, like, I don't know the number, but a lot of his damage when he gets Gensu's. He's probably missing like 20 or 25% of his total damage, like, output because of this buff. So pretty much this just says once Master Yi gets Gensu's, he does 20% extra damage. The hell? What is wrong with these people? Like, nerf this champion. I don't know. Like, he's like one of the most toxic, like, poorly designed champions in League of Legends historically. I know there are a lot of other commentators that totally hate this champion. Now, there are people that love him. There's a buddy that I duoed with a couple of years ago that we still see every now and then who plays him. And there are a dedicated group of one-tricks that play him. but he is so toxic. It's because he's so strong. He's such a great 1v9 champion, and it's just like he's the quintessential like impossible to deal with if he gets very fed. And everyone has all these great theories like, well, just invade him and shut him down early, or just draft a lot of CC and just shut him down. It's like it doesn't happen in solo queue, okay? People in gold, a lot of times, your teammates at least. Now, you guys are smart, I know, because you're watching my channel. You want to learn, you want to think about macro, you want to become better. But most people, they got their headsets in, they're just zoning out, listening to their lo-fi hip-hop, smoking a bowl on the side, just chilling, or whatever. Like, they're not focused on macro. They're not focused on shutting this guy down early. All they want to do is try to win lane, get a sick outplay on their opponent, and then just complain when the Master Yi is 6-0 out of the jungle. Like, that's how it goes down most of the time in a lot of ELO brackets, right? So people are not systematically trying to shut this guy down. There's not going to be somebody who's like, you know what? I really like Katarina. I want to play Katarina this game, but they first picked Master Yi, so I think I'm just going to play Malzahar. Nobody's going to do that, right? Like, at most ELO brackets, nobody's going to do that. People are just going to pick the champions they want to play no matter what. They don't care what the enemy's picking. They're not going to go out of their way to draft additional countermeasures to him. And so he just thrives on that, and he's, I've always recommended him as one of the best one-trick junglers because once he gets a couple items, he can do everything. Like, he can make large contributions to team fights. He gets resets. He does a heck of a lot of damage. He can split push. He can solo Baron, off of like 3 items. He can duel people. He can 1v1 almost anybody when he gets a lot of farm. And he's not that hard to play. He's okay. Like, using your Alpha Strike to dodge certain abilities and things like that, or to get resets on the tower. There is some skill to him. I mean, he's harder to play than Garen, okay? But let's be real, it's not that much. He's not Riven, he's not Azir, he's not Yasuo. So, he's way too strong, and I think he's just way too consistent in the right hands right now. And this is a massive, massive buff to him. So, we'll see. I fully expect Yi to probably gain 1 or 2% off of this. He might even gain 3% off of this. Like, I think we're going to see 52+%, 52, maybe 53% Master Yi off of this, maybe even more. So this is really spooky. Okay. Pyke. It's tough to say with this. I think Pyke's still going to be good. Pyke doesn't have a huge win rate right now, but I do think that he is pretty good. I think he's one of the top 5 supports. Now, part of this is he is somewhat challenging to play because I think people are too aggressive with him. He is very squishy. He can get punished really hard. And people just don't abuse his invisibility and like his ability to ward really well enough in solo queue. So I think that holds him back. But people that are very good on him, that really understand the power of, getting an extra sweeper with Duskblade effectively, using your invisibility to get really deep wards in the enemy jungle, without being spotted yourself with the W. Because that's really part of what makes him really strong is he is a supreme vision control champ. Because he gets the extra sweeper, like I said, off of Duskblade, and he can get really deep wards very safely and get away, in the enemy jungle if people try to collapse on him. So he's just almost impossible to lock down. He's very safe from ganks. He's got great vision. And then, of course, you have the marquee stuff that he's good at, right? He, gets those kills. But the important thing about those kills is not even really the kills itself. A lot of time you'll find yourself almost KSing with Pyke. Like, the person was probably dead anyways. I'd say probably like 60, 70% of the time they're dead anyways. But the thing is, it's all the extra gold. That's the issue. Is he basically turns every kill into a double kill if he uses that ult. So even if you just, KS that kill, you should try to KS it because it's so much gold. Like, that's one of the big issues with Pyke is it's like all the money that he gets, all the vision that he has, and how safe he is for a champion that has that much playmaking potential with his engage. All that combined is what makes him really, really strong. So they aren't addressing that. What they decided to do instead is they're like, okay, he can keep all of that, but we're going to make him a little bit squishier. So remember, like, he can't buy health. So getting this, or like losing 10 health per level, it does add up a little bit, right? In the laning phase, 50 health, yeah, it's gonna matter, right? So instead of having 1,000 health, you have 950. You know, that's 5% less health. That can definitely matter. Um, but is it enough? I don't know. And then your regen, you're not getting to level 18, so that's not gonna matter that much, anyways. I don't know exactly how much this scales. I guess now in the mid game, you're gonna have about 40% versus this. You probably had 50 or 60% gray skin. So that's fine. I still think you're going to regen quite a bit with him. I mean, the regeneration is ridiculous. Like, there's no cooldown on it. It just feels like you regen everything. I think you can probably take Revitalize instead of the Tenacity. Wait. Yeah, he still is going to go Aftershock. Yeah, you can still take Revitalize instead of the Tenacity one, and that will make up for some of this. If you're below 40%, you're going to get 15% extra healing. So it's fine. I think he's still going to be good. He's still going to be able to do what he does. But now, like, poke champions will have a slightly better time against him. So, like, your Namis, your Zyras, things like that, things that can poke him out and force him to use this gray skin are going to help him out. Now, it's not going to matter that much in a lot of burst lanes. So, if you're against the Leona, if you're against, the Nautilus or whatever in an all-in fight, this is probably not going to matter that much, right? Because by the time, you hook somebody or they hook somebody, you both use all of your cooldowns, somebody's probably going to die before you use your W and escape and heal up with the gray skin, right? So it's not going to matter that much in fights. It has to be a really long fight for you to, like, go in, do your stuff, and then run back out with your W, wait on it to heal for, like, 3 or 4 seconds, and then come back in and do another round of cooldowns. It's like sometimes that happens in late game team fights, but most of the time, most fights are over in 5 seconds or less. So it's in this meta, there's just so much damage going on that I don't think this is going to matter that much. Maybe this pulls him down 0.5% or something. Maybe it makes his matchup against the enchanters a little bit harder, but in general, I think he'll be fine. Okay, Shaco. Box duration down to 40 seconds. I like this. I think Shaco is on the strong side. It's kind of sad because, support Shaco is kind of interesting. I have tried him out. I have played him. He's okay. He takes a lot of practice to get used to. But I do think that the boxes lasting 60 seconds is a bit obnoxious. That is a bit much. Because you can box up. Once you get a lot of CDR and you get it down to like 10 seconds a box, having 6 boxes up is quite a lot. That's a lot of ground to cover, and it just makes it very, very difficult to engage on him or his AD carry whenever there's 6 boxes all around the place. So I like that they are, they're still giving him the damage. That's fine. He can still make plays with his boxes. You can still have up like 4 boxes, right, with the CDR. But they just don't want it to be like this long-lasting threat that just becomes like a real burden to try to deal with. So I think they had to either nerf his burst or they had to nerf his the amount of like zones he can control with his boxes. So they decided to nerf the zones. I'm cool with that. I think it's fine. The thing that really makes him strong a lot of times is the clone. Whenever it blows up, it does a lot of damage and it instantly fears. That's the big thing, is it instantly fears, does a lot of damage, and those 3 little clowns that shoot off of that do a lot. So even off of not that many items, you can easily knock out half to 75% of somebody's health just off of that clone alone. Then all you have to do is, Q, go invisible, and then just run up and throw the shiv at him and run away, and you're probably going to be able to kill him. So I still think he's actually quite good as support right now if you practice him. He's certainly very fun. I like to play him when I did it. I just don't think I'm good enough on him. But if you actually practice it, he could be okay. Now, could he receive further nerfs? Maybe. I mean, he's at 55% win rate. And he's banned 40% of the time. So, we'll see. He doesn't have a very high pick rate. Now, that's as support. He doesn't have a very high pick rate. But, we'll see. We'll see. So, yeah, he might get another nerf coming soon. I wouldn't be surprised if they nerf some of his AP ratios on his boxes or some of the base damage, but overall, he's still probably going to be all right. I mean, he might go down a couple of percent off of this, 1 or 2%, but most people don't even know how to play him, and he still has 55%. This is just a lot of people probably just YOLOing, and, like, I want to go Shaco support. I saw, like, someone else do it. Let me try it out. So there's still, I mean, yeah, it's going to be one tricks also, but there's still going to be a lot of people that don't know what's going on that are trying it out, and they still have a 55% win rate. Okay, because let's be real, no one outside of like Pink Ward or like maybe like one or two other like Shaco support players even existed. Certainly not a 2% pick rate existed before these buffs. He was probably at like a 0.2%. So somebody's learning him, somebody's working on him, and he still has that kind of win rate. So I'd say probably at least half of the players that are trying him out did not play him before the buffs, and he still has that kind of win rate. So it's not just like a bunch of one tricks that have been doing this for years that are inflating that win rate. It's like, no, legit, he's got a high win rate even while people are learning him. Okay, Sona, they're changing it. I like how they say bug fix for the adult woman. They called it baby girl, and then LS like cringed at that and said that was really stupid. There was probably some parade of people calling it misogynistic as well. That Ginsu or whoever that I don't remember who the person was that said that in the last one, but they've got some woman, Hannah, doing this one, and she says, this adult woman is getting buffed or bug fixed. Okay, fine. I think that's meant to be tongue-in-cheek funny rather than a slight at that guy. I think it's supposed to be making fun of him. But anyways, whatever. Welcome to 2019. Anyways, some of his abilities no longer fail to generate power chord stacks. Okay, whatever. I mean, it's a nice... I haven't played her since they did this with the resource bar or whatever, but it's okay. Victor, they're giving him, 10 extra damage. Now properly buffs his shields when... Okay, so that could be really big, because I think he's supposed to get a lot of extra shield whenever it augments. And if it wasn't giving him that, and I think that's his early augment, right? Maybe that's just for top lane Victor. I don't know if he does his Q or his E. It might depend on your build and what you want to do. But I know that Q is certainly at least the second thing that you max, I believe, if not the first one. So you get it fairly early to augment, increasing the shield's value by 60%. Yeah, so that's pretty important. That's pretty important. So the fact that he was not getting 60, what I assume is 60% of his shield, is important. So yeah, now he's basically getting 60% extra shield. So we'll see. That sounds like a pretty significant buff, and the damage is 10 extra as well. Pretty short range, but it is spammable. I don't know if people can do like top lane Klepto Victor. I haven't seen him a lot. When I have seen him, it seems like he's done all right, but 49%. I think he'll probably get a percenter. As you can see, him going up to like 50 or 51% off of this, so pretty good. Not going to be totally meta breaking, but probably pretty good. I mean, maybe it's even better than I think. Maybe it goes up like 3%, but I think he'll still be like, you could pick him and do all right. Warwick. So they're buffing the Q, and they're buffing 70% extra attack speed early. That's pretty big. I mean, especially if you want to go Q max, which they're saying people max W. Do people really max W? I don't know Warwick that well. I always just assumed it was Q max, because that's what you spam. That's what heals you. All of that stuff. But maybe some people do go W. It's on a really long cooldown, though, I think. In like 60 seconds or something. So now you get a free... Oh, no. It's... Yeah, no. It's better early. So it's 70 early. Still goes up to 110% from 50 to 110. So I think this is basically saying max Q. Because now you're getting 2% extra off of Q max. And you're getting 20% more early for W. This is going to help him a lot with his early ganks, with his early clears. It's good. Warwick, I feel like he's okay. He's like 52%. He's all right. I think he's okay. He's a good sort of bruiser, tank-ish type of champion. I think Warwick can be decent. So, nice buff. Probably a percent off of him. So, he could get up to 52, 53% off of this. Pretty decent. I don't know what his items are. I don't really know. I don't see Warwick a lot. I don't know if he's going Cinderholt still, or the on-hit thing. I'm not really sure what he builds in terms of... maybe he goes... Honestly, I don't know. I mean, let me just see real quick, and that'll be it for this video. It was a little bit longer than I thought this was going to be, but I explained Garen for a while and a couple of other things. So PTA, okay, so it is still Cinderholt. Okay, yeah, he's one of the ones that really wants Titanic Hydra because he doesn't have good AoE. So his jungle clear is going to be a lot slower later on than other champs. Okay, and then people just build him tank. Spirit Visage, everybody's favorite item, Dead Man's Plate on my stream. Okay. I wasn't sure if he was going for a more aggressive build or not, but yeah, at top level play, I think he's just too slow, but you know, at platinum and lower, I think he can be alright. I mean, things that need Tiamat right now in the jungle, that got nerfed pretty hard a while back. I think it was earlier this season. And a lot of those champions haven't quite recovered, but I still think for most elo brackets, he'll be okay. That's the #1 upvoted comment. Adult woman. Weird, man. Anyways, okay. Well, that's going to be it for this. Thank you very much for watching. So, I don't think it's going to shift the meta too much. You know, Lulu, I think, can be a pretty big beneficiary. Maybe a couple of percent. The Kog'Maw thing is tough to tell. Maybe, you know, like I said, mid Kog'Maw, that could be weird. The Kayn thing, probably not that much of a difference. Garen's still OP. Maokai doesn't matter. Master Yi, super scary buff. I think he's going to get like 2% off of that. Pyke probably doesn't matter. Maybe a slight nerf. Slight nerf to Shaco. Victor, pretty good buff. He's not going to be amazing, but he'll be alright. And then Warwick is okay. Why don't they just do this with every champion? Why are they rolling this out really slowly to, like, whole numbers? Why are they even fractional to begin with? Like, why is his base armor 0.72? Like, who's sitting there at Riot's balancing unit is like, you know what, with Warwick, I think the right number here is probably 22.72. I think that's how much armor he should have. That'll give him, you know, an extra 0.001% resistance against the early jungle mobs, and that's going to increase his clear speed by 0.03 of a second. I think that's exactly what we need. So therefore, he gets one extra step towards top lane after he finishes his full clear. I think that's exactly where we want his power level to be. It's like, what? Who does that? Like, who thinks of it that, I mean, that's obviously, like, goofy. Like, there's no one that actually thinks that. But, like, what's the purpose of these fractions? Like, why 52.04? Like, is it just some kind of algorithm thing? Like, they did their balancing through an algorithm based on, like, win rates? And I don't know what. Just, yeah. So, anyways, I don't know why they don't just make everything a round number. Just literally round everything off just to give a round number. Because they keep trickling it out every patch they do this. And it's just, like, kind of troll when they do it. But, anyways, whatever. That's going to be it. Thank y'all very much for tuning in. As always, I appreciate it. And we'll see everybody next time. Have a good day.